In the freezing dawn of 1943, a young Soviet commander proposed an unorthodox tactic, firing while retreating. His comrades dismissed it as reckless. Yet moments later, behind a shattered tank, his reverse shot shattered a German Panzer, proving desperate innovation could mean survival on the brutal Eastern Front. The Normandy countryside lay scarred beneath a leaden sky, the earth trembling under relentless artillery and tank fire. Thick mud clung stubbornly to the worn uniforms of British soldiers, seeping into boots and sleeves alike, a constant reminder of the ceaseless struggle. In the tangled embrace of a battered hedgerow, a small group of men gathered around a 6-pounder anti-tank gun, their faces streaked with grime and fatigue. The air was heavy with the acrid scent of cordite and churned earth. Private Alan Lewis, the youngest in the team, wiped sweat and dirt from his brow, eyes scanning the muddy field beyond. His breath came in shallow bursts, his body tense beneath the weight of the moment. The others, seasoned and hardened, exchanged furtive glances as he voiced an idea that echoed quietly against the chaos. A reverse shot, aiming the gun backwards, contrary to standard doctrine, was his suggestion, born from instinct rather than protocol. The men fell silent, the crackle of distant gunfire filling the space between them. The skepticism was palpable. Years of training and discipline fought against the impulse to try something so unorthodox. Yet no man could ignore the slow, methodical prowling of German armored vehicles advancing through the fields, their presence a shadow that loomed large in every heartbeat. The tension was a tangible thread weaving through the team, binding doubt and survival in a fragile balance. Around them, the hedgerow shuddered as shells exploded, showering dust and splinters over the soldiers. The air vibrated with the low growl of engines and the sharp whistle of incoming rounds. Alan's idea hung suspended, fragile against the roar of battle. What happens next will decide the fate of the men involved. The ground beneath their feet was soaked with more than just rain. It held the weight of command, choice, and consequence. The first light of dawn struggled through a thick mist that clung low to the field, dampening sound and swallowing color. A cold dampness settled into the bones of the earth and seeped into the thin uniforms of the men crouched around a low mound of disturbed soil. The squad worked in silence, their hands methodical and practiced as they filled sandbags. The rough burlap absorbed moisture from the morning air, heavy now with the weight of earth. Nearby, a slender barrel of a 6-pounder anti-tank gun protruded from a shallow pit, partially concealed beneath a patchwork of threadbare camouflage netting. The net sagged under droplets of dew, failing to fully obscure the weapon's outline. Alan, the youngest of the crew at 19, knelt beside the gun, his fingers nimble as they carefully cleaned the breech. The metal gleamed faintly despite the muting dawn, the dull gray of the barrel etched with faint scratches and worn numbers. His eyes narrowed, tracing the field's contours through the haze, absorbing the soft shapes of hedgerows and distant trees. In his lap rested a small, battered pocket notebook. With deliberate strokes, he sketched a diagram of their position, marking angles and lines of sight. His pencil moved steadily, recording what he called the reverse shot setup, a plan to cover the field behind them just in case. The sergeant, a man hardened by years of war, glanced down at the notebook over Alan's shoulder. His mouth twisted into a tight, skeptical line. "What's that then?" he asked sharply, voice low, but carrying enough weight to draw the attention of the nearby men. Alan closed the notebook quickly, cheeks flushing under the sergeant's gaze. "Just a precaution," he muttered, trying to keep his voice steady. "It's the angle of fire if we have to cover the rear." The sergeant snorted, shaking his head in disbelief. "You and your fancy drawings, Professor. We're not artillery observers." The others nearby exchanged quick glances, some stifling chuckles. One of the gunners, wiping grease off his hands, grinned and added, "Better get used to it, Al. You're our resident brainbox now." The nickname Professor hung in the air, half mocking, half affectionate. Alan's fingers tightened around the notebook's worn edges, hiding the flicker of embarrassment that crossed his face. Yet his eyes did not waver from the direction behind them, where the soft outlines of the field bore the faintest signs of movement through the mist. A low rustle of grass whispered in the stillness, and for a moment, time seemed to hold its breath. The squad busied themselves with the last touches to their position. Sandbags were stacked unevenly, forming a crude but effective barrier against small arms fire and shell fragments. The camouflage netting was adjusted, branches woven in to break up the unnatural shape of the gun emplacement. Boots shuffled against damp earth, the faint creak of canvas packs settling. The air smelled of wet soil and cold metal, punctuated by the sharp tang of gun oil as Alan returned to his task. Despite the light chatter and occasional snickers, a quiet tension hung beneath the surface among them. None spoke openly of what might come, but every glance toward the horizon was measured, every movement deliberate. The sergeant's eyes scanned the field frequently, hands resting near his belt, ready but restrained. Alan's mind replayed the possible threats he imagined in the rear fields, the vulnerability of their position pressing like a weight on his chest. The mist shifted slightly, thinning in pockets where the first weak rays of sun fought through. A bird called out briefly in the distance, its note sharp and isolated amid the muted sounds of preparation. Alan paused, pencil poised over the notebook once again, as if willing the scene before him to reveal its secrets. His breath came steady, controlled, but the chill in the air was nothing compared to the unease that settled low in his stomach. What happens next will decide the fate of the men involved. The morning held its silence like a held breath, waiting for the unseen forces to emerge from the mist and challenge the fragile defenses. Alan's eyes flicked once more to the rear approach, where the grass bent faintly under an invisible weight. The squad's fate hung poised between the known and the uncertain, captured in the fragile light of dawn. The morning light filtered through the thin canopy of leaves, casting mottled shadows onto the worn canvas tarps stretched above the men. Around a patch of dirt cleared of grass, the crew sat on their packs, huddled over tinned food, their hands numb from the chill that clung to the air. The rattle of empty cans echoed softly as they ate, the cold rations a stark contrast to the warmth of the rising sun. Alan wiped his mouth with the back of his hand, clearing his throat before speaking. His voice was low but steady, a hint of urgency threading through the calm. If the Germans break through the front, we've got an option. We could swing the gun around, quick as we can, and fire back the way they came. The men paused, chewing as his words hung in the stillness. He gestured toward the heavy artillery piece stationed a few meters away, its barrel yawning toward the enemy lines. It's not fixed, the mount can rotate. We just need to be ready to move it fast enough. A corporal sitting cross-legged with a cigarette stub clenched between his teeth, snorted dismissively. That's movie nonsense, Alan. You think this isn't the real world where things are messy. You don't just spin these things round on a dime. Others around the group shifted uneasily, nodding at the corporal's words. The sergeant scratched his stubbled chin, eyes narrowing as he exchanged looks with the corporal. We don't have time to tinker with fancy ideas now, muttered another man, his voice hard and tired. We follow orders. The gun points where it's supposed to. Alan's fingers tightened around the cold metal of his spoon, his knuckles paling. He looked down for a moment, the sudden weight of isolation pressing in. The men's eyes avoided his, turning back to their tins or to the forest beyond. Yet Alan's gaze kept drifting toward the dense tree line behind them, where shadows clung thick and the underbrush shivered in a faint breeze. The woods seemed alive with quiet waiting, a dark boundary that separated the fragile calm of the moment from the unknown threat gathering beyond. Each rustle of leaves, each broken twig carried a silent warning. Alan's mind raced, picturing the gun shifting, the battle lines shifting with it. Above, the distant drone of engines began to rise, a low mechanical hum that rolled over the trees and fields. The sound was steady, methodical, growing louder with each passing second, threading itself through the morning air like an unseen tide. The men's faces tightened. Some looked up, shielding their eyes against the brightening sky. The corporal flicked ashes from his cigarette and muttered, "Here come the Luftwaffe. They'll make short work of this place before your fancy ideas even get off the ground." His tone was bitter but edged with unease. Alan swallowed hard, feeling the tension coil tighter in his chest. The idea he'd tried to share, dismissed so quickly, now seemed more urgent. The gun was heavy, but so was the threat. If the Germans broke through, the crew would have seconds, maybe less, to act. One of the younger soldiers shifted, glancing nervously at the woods and then at Alan. "You really think the gun can be turned like that? They'd never let us do it in time." Alan's eyes met the youth's, steady and sure despite the dawning fear. "It's possible. We have to be ready for it. I'm not saying it'll be easy, but it might save us." Silence settled again, broken only by the distant roar of engines and the occasional snap of a branch. The men returned to their rations, their movements slower now, weighed down by the sound shifting closer overhead. The sergeant exhaled deeply, rubbing the back of his neck. "Look, Alan, we'll do what the situation demands. But right now, we keep the gun trained forward. If it comes to swinging it round, we'll cross that bridge when we get to it." Alan nodded, though the lump of frustration and worry in his throat did not ease. The corporal's words echoed in his mind, but so did the image of the gun spinning, turning the tide in an instant. He looked once more toward the thick woods, where the shadows deepened, and the first hints of movement stirred beneath the branches. The engines overhead grew louder still, the mechanical drone filling the silence with a promise of approaching conflict. What happens next will decide the fate of the men involved. As the men finished their cold meal, the air hung heavy with anticipation. The forest remained still, but the tension was palpable, a charged calm before the coming storm. Alan's eyes narrowed, his fingers brushing the dirt as if seeking steady ground beneath the shifting uncertainty. The gun sat ready, but the question lingered. Would they have the time, the chance, to act on the desperate plan flickering in his mind? The next seconds would change the course of the confrontation. The sun reached its peak, casting harsh light over the battered field where the squad had entrenched themselves. The air hung heavy, thick with dust stirred by distant shell fire and the faint scent of burnt oil. Alan stood near the battered tank, his uniform dusty and damp from the morning's exertions, eyes scanning the horizon under a sky smeared with faint wisps of cloud and smoke. The sergeant called the men together, his voice firm but edged with fatigue, repeating the new orders they had just received. "Hold position at all costs," the sergeant said, his gaze steady as he faced the squad. "HQ confirms no tanks coming from behind." "That's final. We're the shield, no fallback." His words echoed over the dry earth, carried by a breeze that stirred the scattered leaves and debris around them. The men listened, the weight of command pressing on each soldier in its own way, heavier than the gear on their backs. Alan felt the pressure in his chest, the routine of orders and response folding over him like a shadow. This was his role now, steady, prepared, holding the line. His hands rested briefly on the cold steel of the tank's barrel, rough to the touch after weeks of use. The sergeant's certainty was both a comfort and a burden. No reinforcements from behind meant no relief, no second chance. Just this moment, this place. A sudden small motion caught Alan's eye. A butterfly, delicate against the harshness of war, fluttered down and settled quietly on the tank's barrel. Its fragile wings, patterned in muted browns and whites, moved gently in the light breeze. For a fraction of time, the world felt suspended, caught between the war's relentless pace and this fragile sign of calm. Alan watched, the image sinking deep as a rare quiet. Then the peace shattered. The ground trembled with a distant but growing roar. The sharp crack of artillery shells broke the stillness, the sound cutting through the hum of the day. Dust and debris erupted nearby, shaking the earth beneath the men's feet. Alan jolted instinctively, muscles tensing, eyes narrowing against the grit blown into his face. The butterfly scattered abruptly, wings folding as it took flight, disappearing into the haze overhead. The squad was instantly alert, bodies tightening into position as the first shockwaves rolled through the field. The roar of shells was joined by the metallic clang of the tank's hatch slamming shut, sealing the men inside their armored refuge. Alan's heart pounded hard against his ribs, adrenaline surging through his veins, sharpening senses dulled by fatigue. Every sound was amplified, The crackling of radio static, the distant thuds of explosions, the breath of men holding steady. Inside the tank, the cramped space was a blur of activity and silence. Alan moved with practiced care, the weight of the moment settling deep as he prepared a shell. His fingers worked deliberately, stripping the casing and loading the round with quiet precision. The routine was ingrained, muscle memory taking over amid the chaos. Preparing for what might come next was both a necessity and a comfort, a small measure of control. The men exchanged brief glances, unspoken communication passing between them. Fear, determination, weariness, all held just beneath the surface. The sergeant's voice crackled through the intercom, steady and commanding, anchoring them in their task. Outside, the ground continued to shudder, the relentless artillery fire pressing in, each blast a reminder of the fragile line they maintained. Alan's eyes flicked to the small viewport, catching glimpses of dust clouds swirling in the distance. The sun glinted off shattered tree branches, and twisted metal sprawled across the field. The world beyond was fractured, uncertain, yet they remained fixed in their post, a silent promise to hold firm. Time seemed to stretch and compress, each second weighted with possibility and threat. The men's breathing synchronized with the rhythm of distant explosions, hearts beating in the shared tension of waiting. Alan's thoughts were quiet, focused on the task at hand, the shell in his hands a symbol of readiness more than aggression. He knew this moment could shape what came next. What happens next will decide the fate of the men involved. The sergeant's voice cut through again, calm but firm. Hold steady. Eyes sharp. No tanks from behind. The words circled in the narrow space, a refrain against the uncertainty pressing in. Alan held the shell close, the cold metal a stark contrast to the warmth of the sun filtering through the armored glass. Outside the tank, the world remained unsettled, the tides of battle rolling in waves of noise and silence. The squad was a small island of resolve amidst the chaos, each man silently carrying the weight of command and survival. The butterfly's fleeting presence lingered in Alan's mind, a fragile moment of peace before the storm. Stay with this moment, everything is about to shift. The sky was a pale, washed-out gray as the early afternoon sun struggled to pierce through thick clouds. A steady breeze moved through the broken branches of the trees behind the gun pit, their leaves rustling softly. Somewhere beyond the ridge, the distant rattle of artillery grew louder, slow and deliberate, a grim metronome marking the approach of shell fire. The field ahead lay scarred and devastated, churned by repeated explosions. Craters punctured the earth like open wounds, mud mixed with shattered roots and fragments of shattered wood. The air smelled faintly of damp earth and burnt powder. The men crouched low behind the heavy artillery piece, their uniforms stained with dirt and sweat. Each face was tight with tension, eyes flicking constantly toward the blasted landscape. They moved cautiously, careful not to draw unnecessary attention from unseen observers. Alan's heart hammered as he glanced over the disfigured ground, a quiet prelude to the violence yet to come. His fingers trembled slightly as they gripped the cold metal of the gun's controls. He checked the reverse arc, turning the wheel methodically, trying to steady his breath. The mechanism responded with a low groan, stubborn as the ground beneath their feet. Alan's gaze shifted to the loader beside him, a young man named Harris, his cheeks flushed beneath the grime. Alan tried to offer a brief, light-hearted remark, the kind that could break the oppressive silence, but Harris's only reply was a curt nod, eyes fixed on the horizon. The absence of response made the pit feel colder, heavier. The weight of unspoken fears pressed in on them. The wind lifted again, sweeping through the broken canopy behind them, setting the branches into restless motion. The trees swayed rhythmically, their movements masking faint new sounds. A low murmur, barely perceptible, something other than the steady thunder of distant shells. Alan's gaze flicked back and forth, straining to identify the source. His training told him to trust his senses, but this was different. It was an instinct, a shadow at the edge of awareness he couldn't quite name. Around him, the men remained still as statues, every muscle coiled tight. Sweat trickled down Alan's temple, mixing with the grime on his face. The smell of burnt powder grew sharper, cutting through the damp earth scent. Somewhere beyond the shattered field, a shell exploded, sending a plume of dirt and smoke curling into the sky. The ground vibrated faintly beneath their boots. A bird took flight from the trees, calling out sharply as it vanished into the clouded sky. Alan's mind raced, cataloging each sound and movement. The wind, the distant booms, the rustling leaves. They formed a shifting pattern, a subtle warning that something was approaching beyond the shell fire. His hands tightened on the controls, knuckles whitening. The loader shifted uneasily, scraping a finger along the worn metal of a shell casing. No words passed between them, only the shared, silent anticipation. A sudden crack punctured the air, a rifle shot sharp and close. The men jerked their heads toward the trees, eyes wide. The branches ceased their swaying for a brief moment, as if frozen in fear. Alan's breath caught. The next seconds would change the course of the confrontation. The tension twisted tighter. Every element in the scene, the broken earth, the heavy clouds, the restless wind, held its breath. Alan's gaze locked on the tree line, searching for movement, for any sign of enemy troops hidden among the shadows. The loader's grip hardened on the shell in his hands, his jaw clenched. The men were caught in a fragile moment, suspended between the last quiet before the storm and the chaos to come. The shellfire edged yet closer, each explosion a distant hammer striking the landscape. The trees behind them groaned under the wind, their branches creaking like old bones. Alan's senses flared, alert to the smallest shifts. The field ahead might have been a graveyard of past assaults, but the danger was far from over. A flicker of motion, a glimpse of a shadow slipping behind a fallen trunk. Alan's pulse quickened. The loader's eyes met his briefly, a silent question hanging in the heavy air. This was no longer just artillery preparation. It was an impending test of command under fire. The men braced themselves, their bodies pressed low to the ground. The wind carried the distant crack of rifle fire again, closer now, threading through the gusts. Alan's hands steadied despite the tremor in his fingers. The next moments would demand everything from them. In the midst of the shattered field, beneath the restless trees, the men waited. The earth trembled faintly, as if recalling the echo of countless battles fought and lost. The quiet between explosions felt charged with history and fear. Alan glanced once more at the loader, a young soldier shaped by duty and fatigue. No words were needed. Their shared resolve was the only certainty. The wind shifted, carrying with it the scent of gunpowder and wet leaves, a reminder of the fragile line between survival and sacrifice. What happens next will decide the fate of the men involved. The field ahead remained a grim canvas, scarred and waiting. The men held their breath, caught in the stillness before the storm's next move. The quiet tension of the forest shattered abruptly, as a low rumble grew louder behind the squad's position. A steel Panzer IV, its turret swiveling with mechanical menace, emerged from the tree line. The tank's engine roared, muffled tracks crushing underbrush and small branches. The men froze, caught between disbelief and immediate danger. The gun, their sole immediate defense, was pointed away from the threat, aimed toward the distant road. Sergeant Miller's breath caught, a curse spat from his lips, sharp and urgent. Alan's eyes widened as he registered the sudden shift in their peril. "Reverse shot now," he yelled, voice cracking with urgency. The order sliced through the thick, humid air, filled with the sharp scent of pine and cold earth. Time fractured as the squad grappled with the unbelievable. The tank was inches from overrunning their position, and their preparations had not anticipated an assault from behind. For a moment, panic threatened to unravel their training. Hands trembled over weapons, feet rooted to the dirt, breaths shallow and rapid. The Panzer's iron hull gleamed faintly in the dappled sunlight, filtering through the branches. Its main gun turned slowly, surveying the clearing. The distant clatter of other soldiers faded under the mechanical growl, isolating the squad in this critical moment. Seconds stretched and compressed, a collision of chaos and discipline. Alan's hands moved instinctively toward the gun's breech, muscles rigid with strain. His palms burned against the cold steel, the rough texture biting into his skin as he fought to pivot the weapon. Sweat slicked his forehead, mixed with dirt and the sharp tang of gun oil. His mouth was dry, tongue thick, but his mind locked onto the task with clarity born of necessity. Every second wasted could mean death. The sergeant barked orders, voice steady despite the sudden crisis. "Cover the flank, watch for infantry, don't lose your heads." His eyes flicked from the advancing tank to his men, searching for focus amid the rush. The soldiers obeyed, fingers tightening on rifles, eyes scanning the underbrush for support or further threats. The forest held its breath. Alan gritted his teeth as the gun began to respond, creaking unevenly under his effort. The weight was unyielding, but years of drilling lent him strength. His knuckles whitened, blisters forming on his fingertips as the metal scraped against the mounting. Around him, the squad shifted their positions, muscles coiling for action. The Panzer's shadow grew, cold and immense, swallowing the ground beneath its tracks. "Hold steady," Sergeant Miller commanded, stepping forward to assist. Together, he and Alan wrestled the gun into position. The barrel swung slowly until it pointed directly at the tank's hull. The machine's turret paused, as if sensing the sudden readiness. The air crackled with tension, charged by the possibility of survival or destruction. The first shot thundered, a deep roar that echoed through the trees. The recoil jolted Alan's body, chest pressed against the mounting as the shell tore through the air. Dust and bark exploded where the projectile struck the tank's armor, metal groaning under the impact. The Panzer shuddered, halted briefly as if shocked by the unexpected resistance. A breathless silence followed, broken only by the distant whistle of the wind and the heavy breathing of them. The tank did not immediately retreat. Instead, its turret rotated again, searching for the new threat. The seconds that passed were measured and heavy, each man aware that the next move could end their lives. The forest seemed to lean closer, listening to this deadly conversation. Alan's hands lingered on the gun, fingers trembling but ready for the next command. The taste of gunpowder filled his mouth as the smell drifted over the clearing. Around him, the squad readied themselves, rifles raised, eyes sharp, every nerve straining. Sergeant Miller's gaze never wavered. The responsibility of command pressed on his shoulders visibly, the weight of decisions made in silence and sound. The Panzer's engine sputtered, the threat momentarily stalled. But the danger was far from past. The men knew the fight was not over. What happens next will decide the fate of the men involved. The squad held their ground, anchored in resolve born from training and the desperate hope to survive. Alan's blistered hands prepared to fire again, mouth dry but voice steady. The forest remained watchful, shadows shifting with the passing clouds. The tank's presence was a stark reminder of the relentless war pressing in from every direction. The moment was raw, fragile, and defined by the intersection of human will and machine power. Stay with this moment, everything is about to shift. The tension in the clearing was a living thing, pulsing with the breath of men armed against overwhelming odds. The sound of steel against earth, the sharp commands, and the heavy silence between gunfire formed an unspoken narrative of struggle and endurance. The small patch of earth where Alan's squad crouched was raw and scarred under a heavy gray sky. Cold sweat beaded on brows, mingling with the grit pressed into skin. The distant rumble of the advancing tank grew louder, a relentless growl over the muted crackle of rifle fire. In that instant, the men moved as one, following Alan's lead without hesitation. Alan's fingers closed tightly around the worn metal of the anti-tank rifle. His breath came shallow, controlled, as he helped pivot the cumbersome weapon toward the approaching threat. The corporal beside him grasped the barrel and together they swung the gun, the joints creaking under the sudden strain. Time condensed, every second stretching with purpose. Nearby, the loader's hands trembled briefly as he reached for a shell. The cold steel slipped, clattering softly against a stone. A sharp intake of breath caught in the loader's throat. Yet with a quick, steadying motion, he recovered the round and slid it into the chamber. No words were exchanged. There was no time for recrimination, only focus. The tank barrel emerged through a pluming cloud of dust, a dark silhouette cutting the pale horizon. Its cannons swung with deliberate menace, searching for the squad's trench like a predator honing in on prey. The dull clang of metal echoed faintly as the gun shifted. Alan's eyes locked on the barrel, muscles tensed. Around him, the faces of the men, once marked by scorn and doubt, had changed. The sharp lines of fear and determination replaced skepticism. Their shared vulnerability, the sudden clarity of danger, had erased all petty judgments. Each man was bare to the moment, stripped to the raw instinct of survival. Alan adjusted his grip, the leather of his gloves creaking softly. His pulse thudded in his throat, but his fingers remained steady. He sighted carefully, the anti-tank rifle aligned with the tank's vulnerable track. The faint scent of oil and earth filled the air, mingling with dust stirred by the machine's grinding advance. The corporal's voice was a low murmur, steady and measured, as he counted down the seconds left before the tank closed within firing range. The loader's breathing was audible now, careful not to disturb the fragile stillness that had settled. All sounds outside the immediacy of their task seemed to fade, swallowed by a tense silence that pressed against their ears. Alan's hands tightened further, the weight of command settled heavy on his shoulders. He was not alone in this moment, yet the responsibility was singular. Every man's fate hinged on his aim, his timing. The weight of the past mistakes, the earlier doubts from his squad, dissolved. Only the rifle in his hands, the tank before them, and the faint hope of survival remained. The tank lurched forward slightly, metal tracks grinding against fractured earth. The cannon moved again, slower this time, like a beast sensing its opponents. Alan's breath stilled, frozen between exhale and anticipation. The loader locked the shell into position, ready to chamber the round. The corporal's eyes never left the target. He was counting down the invisible seconds until they could act. Within this compressed moment, the men's senses sharpened. The smell of gunpowder lingered faintly, a reminder of earlier skirmishes that had drained their strength. The cold air stung their exposed faces, sweat mixing with dust and grime. The rough fabric of their uniforms clung damply to their skin, the weight of exhaustion pressing down. Alan's sight focused, the scope framing the narrow gap beneath the tank's turret. He calculated trajectory and distance with the practiced eye of a man who had lived too many close calls. The tank's shadow lengthened as it neared, the sound of its engine a low mechanical growl that filled the trench with an ominous presence. Suddenly the loader gave a slight nod, the signal to fire. Alan's finger tightened on the trigger, the tension coiling through his arm. The corporal braced beside him, ready to assist with the recoil. The seconds stretched unbearably, each heartbeat echoing in the silence before the shot. The tank's cannon pivoted fully toward them now, its threat immediate and unmistakable. The men's faces were taut with concentration, the line between life and death razor thin. Their shared breath hung suspended, caught in the stillness before the inevitable. Stay with this moment, everything is about to shift. Alan's fingers tightened around the trigger. The cold metal felt weighty, steady despite the pounding of his heart. As he exhaled slowly, a thin wisp of breath escaped into the chill morning air. The world seemed to narrow to the barrel of his weapon, the looming shape of the Panzer twisting just beyond the shattered hedge. He pulled. The gun bucked sharply against his shoulder. A sharp crack split the silence. A plume of smoke rose instantly, thick and acrid, curling toward the gray sky. The sharp smell of burnt powder mixed with damp earth, and the faint copper tang of blood. The round struck the tank's side armor mere meters away. A sudden burst of flame erupted, bright and brief against the dull steel. The Panzer shuddered violently, its tracks grinding to a halt, sending a low, metallic groan across the field. For a heartbeat, everything froze. The distant rattle of gunfire faded, as if muted beneath a heavy blanket. Only the crackling of the small blaze on the tank's flank whispered through the cold air. The men huddled nearby, crouched low among overturned crates and shattered branches, watched in stunned silence. Faces grimy, eyes wide, lips pressed tight with disbelief. The harsh lines of their uniforms were dusted with mud and sweat, their hands trembling just slightly. Inside the tank, the impact surged through the crew. A sudden jolt threw the driver's head forward against the bulky steel frame. The gunner blinked against smoke stinging his eyes, coughing into the stale air. They shared a quick, shocked glance, unspoken confirmation that the armor had been breached. Outside, Alan lowered his weapon cautiously, muscles taut. He scanned the battlefield, aware of every faint noise, footsteps crunching on gravel, a distant shout, the faint rustle of leaves. His breath misted in front of him, steady but shallow. The tank's engine sputtered, its once mighty roar reduced to a low, ragged wheeze. Black smoke began to pour from the engine compartment, thick and choking. Flames licked hungrily at the welded plates, painting the metal in flickering orange. Time stretched. The world was punctuated by the soft pop of burning circuitry, the distant thud of artillery, the whispered prayers of men who dared not speak too loud. The rest of the unit remained motionless, frozen by the unmistakable sight of the enemy's beast brought low. Their rifles lowered, eyes searching for the next move. The field was heavy with the smell of smoke and burnt oil, the lingering tension of imminent danger. Alan's gaze met that of his commanding officer, who nodded almost imperceptibly. No words were spoken, none were needed. The fate of the men depended on what came next. Suddenly, the tank's turret rotated slowly, smoke billowing from the hatch. The crew's silhouette appeared briefly against the dull gray sky, faces drawn and pale. They moved with hesitant hands, as if unsure whether to abandon their shattered machine or fight on. The quiet was broken by a muffled explosion from inside the tank, followed by sharp hisses and the sputtering of fire. The steel hull groaned under the stress, small fragments of paint peeling away. Alan took a careful step forward, eyes never leaving the smoking ruin. Even as adrenaline surged, a deep fatigue coated his limbs, the weight of command settling heavily on his shoulders. Each decision bore consequence, beyond the immediate moment. Nearby soldiers exchanged glances, the unspoken question hanging in the cold air. What now? The tank was disabled, but the enemy was still alive, still dangerous. The field remained a dangerous place, every shadow a potential threat. The silence shattered again, this time by distant orders shouted over the roar of distant artillery. Movements began anew, cautious but resolute. The men adjusted their positions, eyes sharp, breath steadying after the shock. For a long moment, the small group faced the smoldering wreckage, a bitter testament to the brutal reality of war. The scene was stark, twisted metal, smoke rising in slow spirals, and the exhausted faces of those left standing. This strike, sudden and decisive, had shifted the balance in this quiet corner of the battlefield. But no one dared to relax just yet. Every second held the fragile possibility of new danger, new loss. Stay with this moment, everything is about to shift. The tank was down, but the war around it raged on. The men knew the cost of survival, the weight of their choices pressing into the cold earth beneath them. Alan's eyes lingered on the last glow of fire, the faint crackling of burning metal threading through the stillness. In that quiet, the enormity of what they had done settled deep, a hard victory born from fear, skill, and sheer will. The field remained tense, shadows lengthening as smoke drifted across the sky. The men, their uniforms stained and faces etched with exhaustion, prepared to face whatever came next. Their resolve was quiet but unyielding. The next seconds would change the course of the confrontation. The memory of this moment, sharp and unforgiving, would remain with them long after the guns fell silent. The sharp crack of the last shell faded into the heavy air, leaving an eerie silence beneath the broad, gray sky. Dust hung thick around the battered tank, settling slowly like a shroud over the churned mud and scattered debris. The men stood close, shoulders stiff, their faces etched with exhaustion and disbelief. The sergeant's large hand came down firmly on Alan's shoulder, a silent gesture that carried more weight than words ever could. Alan's eyes met the sergeant's for a brief moment. No smile, no praise, only a steady gaze that acknowledged the burden of what had just transpired. Around them, the rest of the crew leaned against the ragged edges of the tank's hull, breathing hard, chests rising and falling beneath their oil-stained uniforms. Their eyes were wide, pupils fixed on the horizon as if expecting the next threat to emerge from the gray mist at any second. The corporal, whose voice had been steady all morning, muttered under his breath, his tone dry and disbelieving. "Didn't see that in the manual." The words barely rose above the whisper of the wind, but they lingered, capturing the fragile tension that still held the group together. It was a rare moment of levity, fragile and fleeting, barely able to pierce the weight of what had just occurred. Alan's hands trembled as he reached for the next shell, fumbling slightly as he loaded it into the breech. The cold metal was slick with grease and dirt, the sharp edges biting into his skin. Each movement felt heavy, deliberate, as if the weight of the entire battle pressed down upon his fingers. He waited, breath caught in his throat, bracing for the inevitable return of enemy tanks that had threatened to overwhelm them only moments before. But none came. The silence stretched, thick and unyielding, broken only by the distant crackle of intermittent gunfire far beyond the ridge. The men shifted uneasily, their eyes flickering from Alan's hands to the empty fields around them. The tension, once taut as a drawn wire, slowly slackened into a brittle relief. Yet beneath the surface, the fear remained, coiled and ready to spring if the danger returned. Alan's breathing slowed, his shoulders sagging with the release of adrenaline. The shaking in his hands did not subside, though betraying the strain he had carried. Around him, the crew's gazes softened, their expressions blending relief with a new, unspoken understanding. They looked at Alan not as just the boy who had climbed into the turret that morning, but as a man who had stood firm in the face of overwhelming odds. The sergeant's hand remained on Alan's shoulder, steady and grounding. No words were spoken, but the gesture conveyed a quiet respect that ran deeper than any commendation. The men exchanged glances, a subtle shift passing through their ranks. Fatigue lingered in their eyes, but now it was edged with gratitude and recognition. The corporal leaned back against the tank, wiping a smear of sweat from his brow with a sleeve. "We hold here," he said softly, voice steady, but carrying the weight of experience. "For now." Outside, the sky remained a dull, oppressive gray, the wind carrying the faint scent of burnt oil and scorched earth. The tank's metal shell bore the scars of the encounter, dents, scratches, and patches of scorched paint marking the path of enemy fire. It was a silent testament to the ordeal the men had endured together. Alan's gaze drifted toward the distant line of trees, where shadows played beneath the low-hanging clouds. He saw the faint outlines of movement, an enemy patrol perhaps, or scouts probing the line, but for now the immediate threat had passed. The quiet was a fragile thing, held only by the men's readiness to face whatever came next. The crew gathered closer, forming a tight circle amidst the mud and smoke. Their voices were low, measured, carefully chosen as they exchanged updates and checked their equipment. Every sound, metal scraping, shells clicking into place, whispered orders, was magnified in the stillness of the moment. Alan caught the sergeant's eye once more, and this time the slightest nod passed between them. No words were needed. The bond forged in fire was unbreakable, sealed in the shared experience of survival and command. This was not victory, nor was it defeat. It was a moment carved out of chaos, a brief reprieve in a relentless war. The men stood together, breathless and alert, holding on to what they had fought so hard to keep. What happens next will decide the fate of the men involved. Alan's fingers tightened on the shell in his hands, steady now, prepared for whatever the next moment might bring. The lines of exhaustion and resolve were etched deeply on every face, a testament to the cost of command and the quiet courage it demanded. The earth beneath them was scarred, the air thick with the echoes of battle, but the crew remained steadfast. In the shifting light of the afternoon, their shadowed forms stood like sentinels against the vast, indifferent sky. Stay with this moment, everything is about to shift. The evening sky hung heavy with a dull gray, the last light seeping through clouds thick with smoke. The distant rumble of gunfire had finally begun to fade, leaving a tense quiet that filled the shell-shocked landscape. Alan sat on the edge of the battered tank's track, his hands steady but tired as he wiped thick, black oil from the breech of the main gun. The metallic smell clung to his fingers, mixing with the sour sweat on his brow. Around him, the men gathered in small clusters, their voices low and cautious, like the whisper of a wind that might carry danger. The usual bravado was absent. The rough laughter that once punctuated their moments of respite was muted under the weight of what they had faced. Their uniforms were stained, faces blurred by dust and fatigue, eyes flickering with a mixture of relief and disbelief. Alan's gaze drifted toward the group, catching the subtle glances they cast in his direction. Their eyes searched for something, confirmation, understanding, perhaps forgiveness. He could feel their quiet questioning without words. The role he had carried throughout the day pressed upon him more heavily now, in the stillness that followed the storm. Near the tank, the sergeant sat on an overturned ammunition crate, a battered notebook resting on his knee. His pen scratched the paper in uneven lines, recording facts and fragments of the encounter. Occasionally, he paused, lifting his head to study Alan's face before calling him closer with a brief nod. When Alan approached, the sergeant's voice lowered further, steady but edged with fatigue. "Tell me again about the enemy's movement near the ridge," he said, eyes narrowing. Alan recounted the advance, detailing the timing, the shapes of the figures, the way the light caught their rifles. The sergeant's pen moved faster, capturing the nuances that might shape the report and the decisions to come. The air between them was heavy with unspoken acknowledgement. This record was more than paper. It was the memory of survival. The other men listened from a distance, their silence respectful, understanding the burden Alan carried. The sergeant returned the notebook to his belt and offered a rare, brief smile before shaking his head as if to clear the weight from his mind. No words of comfort followed, none were expected. A gust stirred the dust around them, and Alan blinked away the grit that had settled in his eyes. The scent of scorched earth and spent gunpowder lingered, a stark reminder of the day's violence. Yet beneath that, a different feeling took root, a fragile thread weaving through their exhaustion and fear. It was a shared recognition, an affirmation of trust in each other's instincts that had grown from the chaos. The men shifted closer, voices dropping even lower, exchanging observations about positions held, moments when hesitation could have been fatal. They spoke of survival, not victory, their words careful and measured. The fear was still there, palpable in the tightness of their jaws and the quickened rhythm of their breathing. But alongside it sat something unfamiliar, a quiet belief in the decisions made in split seconds, in the judgments forged under fire. Alan's fingers lingered on the cold metal of the tank's breech, tracing the grooves worn by use and battle. The machine had been their shield and their burden, a constant companion through the day's ordeal. Now, in the dimming light, it seemed to absorb the silence of the moment, holding it steady as the men settled around it. No one spoke of the losses, not aloud, not yet. The absence of laughter was not just fatigue, it was respect carved from the day's harsh lessons. Yet in that silence, a bond deepened, forged not by words but by the shared weight of experience. The men were no longer strangers caught in circumstance. They were a unit tempered by fire, their instincts tested and found enduring. The sergeant stood and stretched stiff limbs, casting a glance toward the horizon where the last glow of the sun was swallowed by gathering shadows. His expression was unreadable. Alan looked away, focusing instead on the rhythm of his breath and the steadying click of the tank's mechanisms cooling in the evening air. As night approached, the sounds of the battlefield retreated further into the distance, replaced by the occasional crackle of a radio or the soft murmur of voices. The men prepared for whatever the darkness might bring, their movements deliberate and careful. In this fragile calm, Alan allowed himself a moment to reflect. The day had demanded clarity and command from him, decisions laced with consequence. Now, as the world quieted around him, the weight of those choices settled deeply, mingling with the faint but growing certainty that they had faced the day together, and that this shared instinct might be their strongest defense yet. What happens next will decide the fate of the men involved. The night would test them again, But for now, they held on to this hard-won moment of trust, a silent promise etched in sweat and steel. Darkness settled over the trenches like a heavy curtain, muffling the distant echoes of gunfire into an uneasy silence. The men gathered close, bodies leaning against the cold, uneven earth walls, exchanging quiet breaths that mingled with the damp night air. A single flicker of light moved through the group, as a cigarette was passed from one hand to another, the small glow briefly illuminating worn faces streaked with dirt and fatigue. Alan accepted the cigarette with a nod, fingers trembling slightly before bringing it to his lips. The smoke was harsh, biting through the chill that had crept into his bones. Around him, the other soldiers, his comrades, settled into a rough circle, voices low and steady as they began to recount the day's events once more. This time, their tone carried something new, a mixture of respect and disbelief. "Did you see that reverse shot, Alan? I swear it was something else." A young private's voice broke the quiet, eyes wide in the dim light. "You turned the tide right there, man. Didn't think anyone had it in them." Another soldier nodded, voice rough from exhaustion. "That shot saved us all. Hell, it's gonna be in the stories back at the base. Maybe even back home if they hear." The words hung in the air, touched with admiration and a hint of wonder. Alan listened, a strange weight pressing on his chest. Pride stirred quietly, unspoken, but present beneath the weary lines of his face. Yet alongside it came the heaviness of survival, the knowledge that today's danger was only the first of many. The night pressed in, and with it, the bitter reminder that tomorrow would demand more from them all. A gust of wind rustled through the trench, carrying with it the faint smell of smoke and wet earth. The men pulled their coats tighter, shoulders hunched against the cold. The cigarette passed again, the light briefly reflecting in Alan's tired eyes. He watched his comrades, each absorbed in their own thoughts, their stories weaving together into a shared memory of survival and quiet defiance. One of the older sergeants cleared his throat, voice low and steady as he spoke. "That shot, it wasn't just luck. It was command. Knowing when to act, when to hold. You showed what that means out there, Alan." His gaze met Alan's, a silent acknowledgement passing between them, no need for further praise. The conversation slowed, voices dropping to murmurs as the men settled deeper into the trench walls. Shadows shifted with the flicker of the last cigarette, faces etched with lines born of fatigue and the constant presence of danger. Alan's thoughts drifted back over the day, the tension, the sudden clarity in the chaos, the moment when everything had hinged on a single decision. Outside the trench, the night remained still, the stars hidden behind a blanket of clouds. Somewhere in the distance, a faint explosion punctuated the darkness, a reminder that the front was never truly silent. Yet within this small pocket of earth and shared resolve, time seemed to pause, if only for a moment. Alan exhaled slowly, the smoke curling into the cold air. The pride he felt was tempered by the weight of what lay ahead. The line between risk and ridicule had shifted today, reshaped by courage not often seen amid the endless grind of war. For now, that change was enough. The men fell quiet, the bond of shared experience settling over them like a shield against the night. Alan's eyes closed briefly, not in sleep, but in remembrance of all that had passed and all that was still to come. The trench was dark, cold, and unforgiving, but it was home for now, a place where their stories would live on, told again and again beneath the shadowed sky. What happens next will decide the fate of the men involved. The night held its breath, waiting for the dawn and the challenges it would bring. But tonight in this trench, a quiet victory endured, carried in the steady rhythm of shared breath and the lingering glow of a single cigarette. The small anti-tank crew stood in the fading light, their uniforms dust-streaked and faces drawn from hours of tension. The air hung heavy with smoke and the scent of spent gunpowder, mingling with the dry earth beneath their boots. Around the gun's barrel, silence settled, carrying the weight of what had just occurred. Alan's reverse shot, once the subject of quiet derision, had shattered the advancing tank and saved the crew from certain destruction. A cautious respect replaced earlier doubt in their eyes, fragile but real. The men exchanged glances, each absorbing the truth that courage often dwells in the least expected places. Allen's decision to act differently broke the rhythm of routine commands, challenging assumptions that rank and experience alone dictated survival. In that instant, uncertainty became an asset rather than a weakness. Their fingers still trembled from the recoil, but a new steadiness grew between them, a quiet acknowledgement that innovation was born from risk. The battlefield, relentless and unforgiving, had forced a shift in their understanding. It was not just skill or order that ensured life, but the willingness to listen, to trust a fresh perspective shaped by fear and determination. As darkness crept across the countryside, the crew gathered their gear with a sober resolve. The memory of that day lingered, a persistent echo against the relentless march of war. It was a lesson carved into their very being. Sometimes salvation springs from the unexpected, and every voice has its place. Years later, when the guns fell silent and quiet replaced the roar, the men would recall that moment with a mixture of pride and humility. Allen's courage, once underestimated, had become a cornerstone of their survival. In the ashes of conflict, they carried forward the knowledge that true command embraces uncertainty, and that every risk taken can rewrite the course of history.